You just want to get to making a sale and then making another one like as quickly as you can, because that is like such a massive game-changing experience. And then you start to believe, oh, I've made one, I can actually do this. Now I can go and make two, and I can see that I could make three, and I could see that I can make four. Okay, then you get to 10 sales and you're like, oh, righto.
Welcome to the Dropship Podcast, where you'll learn how to build and grow a high-ticket dropshipping business and hear stories from successful e-commerce entrepreneurs. Let's kick this thing off. Hey, welcome to the Dropship Podcast. And today we're answering a fun question from one of our students. He just got his first couple sales, $5,000 and $3,800 sale. First off, congratulations, Luke, on getting your first couple sales. That feeling is unbelievable. But he asked, could be a fun short topic. What did you use the profits from your first sale on? So he mentioned a podcast of impact theory on which they had Ed Mylett, and Ed Mylett talked about like tasting your dreams before they become your reality. And I want to say he talks about like him walking with his wife or girlfriend at the time, and they're walking through like the richest part of LA on the beach, and just like, putting himself in that neighborhood to say, I'm going to live here someday. I'm going to have one of these places. If you don't know Ed Mylett's story, you should definitely just go listen to Ed Mylett. He's very inspiring. But I think he wanted to ask us, what did we do with our money from our first sale? How did we go taste the reality? I think I have a different take on this than even the question being asked here. I don't think I would, do some of the things Ed Mylett is suggesting, but I am doing it in a different way. And I'm curious, like, how you view this stuff. I took a bunch of notes in the spreadsheet, so I'm looking over here. If you're watching on video, kind of put some stuff in here for me to think about. But John, how do you think about this? Like, do you remember your first sale? Do you remember the profits like directly coming out of that sale? For reference, Luke says I made a $5,000 sale and I made a $3,800 sale, and I'm going to make about $2,000 gross profit on this. I'm going to go out to a nice brewery in our area, have a fancy dinner for the first time ever. I'm not going to look at prices. I'm just going to order what I want, which I think is pretty cool.
I mean, I definitely remember my first sale for sure. I think maybe I can remember my first two sales actually, specifically. I definitely didn't do that. I think my first sale or two definitely didn't have as much profit in them. I mean, there was profit obviously from the sale, but I don't think it was to that level. And, I would expect that I probably had spent a bit of money on ads by that stage, so I used the profit to pay my ad bill. Probably is the reality. I don't know that I necessarily did anything particularly special from those particular orders for sure. I think I was definitely stoked and over the moon to have them, and it was such a great. I can still remember them. That was 10 years ago. I can still literally, particularly the first one, and the second one actually, I can literally remember the place I was standing or sitting for the first one, and then what I did afterwards to go and place the order. I can remember like the whole process. And 10 years ago, I mean, there's, not a lot of specific moments that I can recall with that much clarity from, individual days 10 years ago. So certainly a life-changing experience to go through. But yeah, I guess... I don't know. I did anything special with my first sales. Do you remember yours? If you're listening in and you'd like to take the first steps towards building your own high-ticket dropshipping business, head to dropshipbreakthru.com/go, where we've got a free training waiting for you that's going to walk you through the first steps you need to take to start your own high-ticket dropshipping business. And I'm going to walk you through an actual example of what one of these businesses looks like. I'll see you there.
I mean, do I remember my first sale? I remember it like it was yesterday, just like you, right? Like midnight, had to work at 4 a.m. My phone cha-chings as I'm laying in bed. I should not still be awake on a Sunday night. And I've told the story before. I ran out butt naked and just danced around. I'm like, holy crap, I made my first sale. But in reality, like the product got damaged and I had to go back to the manufacturer. I sold a 3D printer to Duke University. And so I don't think that sale finalized, if you will, for 6 months. And so I don't think I ever realized the cash out of that. My book said I had cash, but I let it just kind of sit in the business because I didn't know whether they were just going to say, hey, I've had enough of this process. I'd like a refund on my order after it got damaged twice in transit to Duke University. I had to come back. It rebuilt. And so, I don't know if I did anything special with the profits, but I'll say this, right? I think this actually boils down to your belief system, right? And so I tentatively put a title in here. I have no idea if it'll be titled this by the time this comes out, of like, a line from Henry Ford, which is whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right. And I think fundamentally, if you don't believe something is possible, it'll never be possible in your life. And so I have like real evidence of that in my own life. I grew up, we'll call it lower middle class. Like all of my needs were met, but we weren't buying anything special for us. I was very envious of the kids wearing their Nike shoes as I was wearing my, Voits from Walmart, watching the kids in their starter jackets as I didn't have one, things like that. Like, we were, all of my needs were met, but we didn't have anything special, which actually I think drove me to like figure out how to make more money. But I'm married. I've been married twice. My first marriage, I married into a family who the dad was the local dentist. His wife was his assistant. And they had a cabin up north, which is pretty common around here, but it was a nice cabin. They had a boat that was a 6-figure boat, which is wild to even think about. And just like their vehicles and their houses and all of that stuff, I could easily do the math and see, oh, like, these guys are millionaires. I didn't even know what that meant. I certainly had a different idea in my head of what a millionaire was versus somebody who was just, a small town, entrepreneur, right? A small town dentist. But that really changed my belief system. Once I saw that what was possible, first off, just seeing what they had was possible, but also seeing that while I thought they had, for lack of better words, they had their shit together better than, early 20s BK, that's for sure. But they weren't like this. I think I always put people up on a pedestal of what I thought you needed to be in order to be a millionaire or to be successful. And once I started, this was like the first glimpse into it, but once I started meeting successful people, one, I realized, oh, I'm smarter than a lot of these people. And two, like, they're just not that impressive. And that really like lowered the bar for me of like, oh, this is possible. And once I believed it was possible, things changed, right? So seeing my ex-father-in-law's wealth, that changed my belief system. Making money online at each level, every level that I've leveled up, that changed my belief system of like what's possible. And it just becomes normalized, right? Going to Elliot Rowe's rooms and sitting in a room with the best jiu-jitsu guy in America, some of the best entrepreneurs in America, some of the biggest influencers, the best poker players in the world, the best UFC fighters in the world, like being around those people, again, changed my belief system. It made me realize things are possible. And like, I think all of these successful people can often just be like characters to you until you actually meet them. And then you're like, for me, it was very humanizing. They're just like regular people who also struggle with things and have, demons in their head that they're fighting every day. For a long time, I thought they must have something I don't. Or, they just felt like fictional characters. So to me, it comes down to belief system, John. Like getting that first sale, circling back to the beginning here, that changed my belief system of like what is possible. The moment you make your first sale online, it's going to change the way you think about everything you're doing. And the fact that you got to go punch a clock the next day rather than work on this business that can, for me, make a sale of multiple thousands of dollars in the middle of the night.
Yep. Yeah. Look, yeah. Whatever you believe is so important about yourself. And I agree. I think when you're first starting out, like your number one goal is just to get to making that first sale. You're starting dropshipping, you got to find yourself a niche and do those sort of things. You got to find the products that you're going to sell. But realistically, I think you just want to get to making a sale and then making another one like as quickly as you can, because that is like mentally such a massive game-changing experience. And then you start to believe, oh, I've made one. I can actually do this. Now I can go and make 2, and I can see that I could make 3, and I could see that I could make 4. Okay, then you get to 10 sales, and you're like, oh, righto. Okay, now that's 10 sales. Maybe that's $20,000 in revenue or something like that. Wow, I just made $20,000 in sales. Now I can see how I can make 40,000. Now I can see how I can make 80,000. And it's your belief system about not just what's possible, but what you're actually capable of changes fundamentally. And I think for a lot of people in the beginning, that is their biggest limiting factor. Is most people get into this, they don't actually believe that they are capable of doing it, or even in some cases that they're worthy of success, right? And the reality is, as long as you're stuck in that situation, like you're just going to keep sabotaging yourself. Like somebody who doesn't believe that they can achieve something, it's going to be really difficult for that person to put in the work, to do the work, even when it feels like it's not working. Like if you don't believe that you can achieve the thing you want to achieve, or that you're worthy of achieving that, then your ability to keep doing, to put in day after day until you get there is very difficult. And so, yeah, I think anything that you can do to change your beliefs about what's possible is a massive thing for you. And part of that is by doing and achieving things. But I do think, to one of the points you made earlier, if you can get yourself around people who have done, I think this is the next best way to do it. If you can get yourself around people who have done some of the things that you want to do, some of the things you'd like to achieve, goals, whether that's financial, whether that's in business, whether that's in health, whatever it is that you're looking to achieve in life, if you put yourself around people who have at least done some of that stuff, if not all of it, you do start to change your beliefs just by seeing them. And I know that's been personal, like for you, that's been a big thing for me, because you do realize when you see people who have achieved the things that you want to achieve, and you interact with them a bit, you find out a bit more about who they really are, that there is usually nothing special behind that. Like, you look at them and go, hang on a second, you're a guy like me, or a woman like me, or you came from a similar place as me. And that by doing that, it really does start to change. And it's kind of a bit of a subtle thing. But it starts to change a lot of what you think about what you can do. And so I think, anybody, once again, who's probably at any point in business, who's interested in progressing to the further levels, you have to go out and put yourself in those situations. So whether that's being part of a community, whether that's going to live events, whether that's, whatever that is, changing your circle of friends, if you can a little bit, to include people who are kind of striving for the same things as you, like, that's all going to be massively helpful for you, to change your own beliefs about what you're capable of, which you have to do.
When I met them, it was twofold. One, some people just have their own. First off, we're all unique sunflowers, however you want to word that. Some people have like their own like little spin on it, right? I'm a weirdo in my own way. You're a weirdo in your own way, and like you have to embrace that weird and lean into it. But the other side of the coin is like, almost everyone I met who's successful, they simply just did more work than the people who weren't successful. And so like, if you do more work, and then time in market beats timing the market, as Warren Buffett would say, right? And so like, just do more work and then be consistent with it. Good things are going to happen, right? If I think I saw Noah Kagan say something like, do anything 100 times, like do anything for 100 days and you're probably going to see results, right? Be consistent for 100 days. I'd say the same thing in dropshipping. If you were consistent for 100 days in building your business, you're probably going to be in a different place moving forward. Was there a moment that you can think back to, John, where you like, I don't want to say met your heroes or something, but was there a moment where you looked at a turning point for you? So I can look back again, meeting seeing my ex-in-laws, right, was a big moment for me. Making that first sale was a big one. Sitting in one of Elliot's rooms. There's a few other mentors I met that didn't impress me much, as Shania Twain would say. Was there a moment for you where it was like, oh, I can do this? Like, do you recall anything that was kind of pivotal for you?
No, I think it was more of a gradual thing for me. I don't think there was any big light bulb moments. And I think, as I mentioned just before, I think for me it happened more subtly. And I just kind of, after like a number of years in business, I think one day I just kind of like sat and thought about it and thought, hang on a second, what I think about what's possible and what I'm capable of and what I can produce is really different to what it used to be. And I think it was, for me, it was a culmination of things, which included like actually achieving things myself, like hitting different milestones in business, like first sales, I think, hitting 50,000 in sales a month, hitting 100,000 in sales a month. Those were all really, none were as big as that first sale kind of thing. None stick in my mind. Like, I can't remember the day that I did 100,000 in sales in a month. Like, what that, like, I don't remember that. But I know that achieving that did change my view about what was possible. And that obviously happened over a little bit of time. I didn't get there like after a month in business kind of thing. But then also just like, I don't think I went to any of the groups that you went to and hung out with, like bigger names and things like that. Like, some of the masterminds you've been in and that sort of thing. I've never done that in that way. But I think for me, like, I was active in a lot of online entrepreneurial communities, forums, things like that. And this is what anyone can do. Anyone can put yourself in this sort of situation. And I would see people who had done like 7 figures in dropshipping revenue, right? And I would see people who had done more than me, right? Or were a bit ahead of me. And I could see their websites and I could kind of get an idea of what they were selling and what they were doing. And I could look at that and say, well, I interacted with some of those people, talked to them on phone calls and Zoom calls and, things like that. And I was like, well, hang on a second. I see who you are, and I see what you're doing. I can do that. Right. And just things like even in our, like our Slack community is part of our Dropship Breakthru membership. We've got our little channel in there where people can share their results. And I would imagine, if you're, one of our members, Bill, put up a fantastic post. We've mentioned Bill on the podcast before. Shout out to Bill. He's just reached his second year in business and he's done a total of $2.7 million in sales in 2 years, which is fantastic. And a lot of that growth has come in more recent times rather than right at the start, right? I would imagine if you're somebody who's just starting out and you see that, and you can interact with people like Bill, that's going to change your idea about what's possible. And we've got tons of those sort of posts in that group, tons and tons. I could imagine if I was just starting out and I was in that group, I would be scrolling through those and reading all of them. And that, it's a really subtle thing. It's not like some light bulb goes off and the next day you're in your business, and everything's, all the results are starting to rain in, but it's just like a subtle shift. You start to believe more about what's possible. And so you're able to then commit to it more fully. You're able to do, to your point, to do the work, which is absolutely what separates people. Bill does the work. He does a fantastic amount of work. He really puts in, he's very consistent. And he's consistent on the right things in his business. But you see other people doing it, you believe that you can do it. To me, it just sort of comes together. But you've got to put yourself there, man.
I do remember being in a place where I thought these guys must have all just gotten lucky somehow. And I'm just waiting for my break. And the reality was I wasn't doing any work to get any breaks in the first place. I'd never given myself an opportunity to see what that could be. I'll give you here's a terrible example. Our daughter, she's not a big fan of brushing her hair. But every time she's done, she's like, man, I really like the way my hair looks when I brush it. And I was like, hey, maybe you should brush it some more. You'd probably like your hair more. No, you know what? It's gonna look bad and it's gonna get natty. And I was like, yeah, but have you tried maybe brushing it, I don't know, 5 times a day and just seeing could it look amazing all day long if you spaced it out? And she's like, no, why would I do that? I don't want to do that. And I was like, but you want this outcome, but you're not willing to go find out. Maybe this works. Maybe it doesn't work, but you're not willing to even go find out. You're willing to shoot this down before you've even started. And I feel like I was the same way. I would just I would see maybe not, people in our group, right? I think our community is wonderful, but I would see other successful people. And rather than go find out, go do some work and see if it could be possible, I would just lean into my belief system that this isn't possible, that they must have gotten lucky, that I just haven't had my break yet. And I would just sit in one spot and wait for something to happen to me. And I'm thankful that somehow, I got so dissatisfied working at a Walmart distribution center and dissatisfied with my life that I took action enough to go find out what could happen. And then lo and behold, I did the work and good things happened. And like you said, it was a string of things, right? I got a sale. Oh, maybe this is more possible. And then I did a little bit more. And then I went to an e-commerce meetup in Thailand with money I didn't really have. And I met some more influential people. And I started getting business partners and I sold a business. And if you look back, they look like they all happened in a perfect order. And some might say, well, you got lucky. But I was in a position to get lucky, right? And through that process, I expanded my belief system. And that's what's truly changed. And I think I still run into that. Honestly, I have a picture. I won't say the number. It's a large number of what I'd like to take home a month. Mm-hmm. It's been on my desk for a while. And my coach, Elliot's been on my case of you have to believe that's possible or you won't go anywhere. And the numbers that we have talked about throughout the years, I'm there. And we consistently hit that number every single month and we haven't gone above it. And so I know I'm limiting myself. I'm not self-sabotaging, or maybe I am, but I'm limiting myself into the next level. And I find that very interesting, that whether you're, limiting yourself to making that first dollar or limiting yourself to making whatever this piece of paper says next to me, it just continues to rear its ugly head throughout the process.
It does. And I think, you have to marry up doing the things like putting yourself in the same place as, other people and getting your own results. You have to marry that up with changing your own self-talk as well. I think this is a big And I don't think there's not a magic. I don't know. There's a magic answer to this. I don't know it anyway, other than repetition, right? Because you put yourself in the room as those people, and you'll see that they're getting results, and maybe they're not really doing anything different to you. They've just done more of it, been doing it for a bit longer, as it often is the case, and whatnot. And you can see that they're a person like you, that they're nothing special. They're not smarter than you. They're not any of that. And yet still your mind's going to say, yeah, but you can't do that, buddy. Or, yeah, but there's something you don't know about them. There's always the yeah, but in the back of your mind. And you've just got to kill that fucker off, man. Like, you've really got to be proactive with that, because that's the next bit. And I don't know. I'm sure there's, some mindset or psychology gurus out there that can probably tell you more about this. But to me, it's just like, I have that as well. Like, you always have that little fucker in the back of your head telling you can't do stuff, right? Everybody does, I think. But you've just got to constantly like call that guy out and say, fuck off, man. Like, that's not true. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Like over and over again. And the more you do that, you start to believe more. But like, you've got to be proactive. I think a lot of people have that in the back of their mind and they just live with it and believe it. And that's I think that's also the final bit that has to kind of shift a little bit. Like I say, I don't think you can ever turn that off. I think my favorite way I've ever heard it put, I think is like, for me personally, is like how Goggins talks about this. He's like, every single day of my life, I have to get up and kill that person. Like the old me.
You got to eat them.
Yeah, whatever he says. Like, basically, that old guy, in his case, it was the overweight guy, the guy that doesn't look anything like he looks today, sort of thing, that didn't run the 50,000 ultra marathons or whatever the fuck crazy shit he's done. He's like, every day that guy is there with me, and I have to kill him, and then go and do what I have to do. And that's an extreme way of putting it, for sure.
It is extreme, yeah.
But nevertheless,
I look at those shoes. Sometimes I'll sit there for 25 minutes. Motherfucker, you're running today.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, I'll sit there. I'm not gonna go do anything else.
Yeah.
I might not get out. He's nuts, man. If you don't know who David Goggins is, go look him up.
Yeah,
You'll either like him or you'll hate him.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I get it. I can get his shit a little bit. It's not for everybody. I totally get that too. But the point of what he's saying is right. Maybe you don't need to think about it in such an extreme way, but what he's saying is right in that that's never going to go away. It's all about how you counter that in your mind, like proactively counter that. And if you can find the way to do that, then sky's the limit.
Tony Robbins says the same thing. Every morning he walks out to his custom cold plunge he built into the ground and he jumps in there. And they're like, why do you do that? Is it for the benefits and the cold shock? And he's like, no, because I want my brain to know when I tell it to fucking jump, we're going to jump. And so I walk out there and I tell my brain to shut the fuck up and we jump in the water and just,
Yep.
That's hard to do. It's easier said than done. I will give you one tip. My friend Bree taught me this at a mastermind way back when that negative self-talk shows up, just start asking yourself, is that true? You don't have to argue with it. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to disagree with it. Just say, is that true? And immediately your brain will you'll start pattern disrupting. So when you're in your head saying, I can't, or I'm not good enough, or whatever the voice is saying to you, just, is that true? And you'll oh, well, actually, no, it's not. Like it'll take a little while, but you'll pattern interrupt. And, I grew up in a household where my mom made can't a naughty word. So if we said can't, we had to go to our rooms because can't do anything. That was her line. And something we try to instill in the kids too. And just, I can't afford it is one of like the things that I despise hearing people say the most, because in reality, you should be saying, how can I afford it? Right. And so like language has been a big thing for me. I wish I knew a little bit more about NLP, but I've sat down with my friend Scott DeMullen, who like did this whole exercise with me and noticed that I was saying always and never, using these absolutes all the time. All the time. There's another one right there. Just like utilizing those. And the moment you do that, you're like, your words are powerful. And so if you're blocking off possibility in the words that you use, in the language that you use, in the words you're saying in your head, it simply won't be possible. And so I'm still working on that today. I hope no one thinks that I'm perfect or you're perfect. Like this is stuff we are constantly working on. And I think that's what life is just constantly trying to get better.
Yeah, it is all the time. And I think, there's no end point. I think the goal is just progress. Like we say, or at least I say a lot here, like, if you're just getting a little bit better day by day, then you're winning. It doesn't matter, because you're right. You're never perfect. the shit never goes away completely. But if you get gradually better at dealing with it day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, and that's the journey, it's years, right? Then you're winning. Then your results will get better. You'll do more, and it'll just get better bit by bit by bit. If you're there hanging out for some massive light bulb moment where it's all going to go and everything's going to be fixed, like, that's not how it works. It just doesn't work like that. It's nice to think that from the outside, but the journey is like, it's rocky, it's bumpy, it's up and down, and it's messy. That's just the way it is. That's the way it is for everybody, regardless of what you see from the outside. But as long as you're like going your little ups and downs, and over longer periods of time it's an upward trend, then you're doing amazing.
I love your point of get around people, right? So I'm sure there's some people listening to this who are going to be at the live event later this month. That's one way to get around people. And you mentioned our community. For anyone listening who hasn't started and you're like, man, how do I get around those people? Take action, like start. Obviously, John and I are big fans of our own community. There are other communities out there as well. Like, get around people who are doing this stuff. And if you come join our course and join our elite, you're going to be in a Slack group with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are posting about this stuff, the wins, the losses, the things that suck, the things that are great. And you're going to be in the arena, as I once said in a podcast a long time ago. And like, get in the arena, get around people who are doing this, and magically your belief system will start changing. Thanks for listening to the Dropship Podcast. You can find all the show notes for this episode at dropshippodcast.com. And if you're ready to take the next step in your dropshipping journey, we invite you to join us inside Dropship Breakthru, where John and I will walk you through step by step in starting your own high-ticket dropshipping e-commerce business. But that's not all. Dropship Breakthru will also teach you everything you'll need to know to grow your business and take it to the next level. So head over to dropshipbreakthru.com and sign up for our free training that will help you take the first steps towards building and growing your own profitable high-ticket dropshipping business.